In this video, we'll be taking a look at what it's like to fly on two of Switzerland's lesser-known airlines, Edelweiss and Helvetic Airways. To start, we'll be testing out the experience on board an Edelweiss A320 from Larnaca up to Zurich. Then, we'll head up even further north on a shorter Helvetic Airways Embraer flight. Despite not actually flying on Swiss International Airlines itself, I booked my ticket through the Swiss website. And thanks to Star Alliance Gold status held from a different airline, I will have a few extra benefits while flying in economy class. So we'll be checking out the whole onboard experience, examining service, in-flight offerings, seats, and much more along the way. But to start, I'm gonna see if I can get in the lounge here, although Edelweiss is not a Star Alliance member, so I'm just gonna see if they'll let me in the lounge or not. Hi, this would be the wrong lounge for a Star Alliance Gold member, right? No, Star Alliance Gold, Swiss.
Second floor.
Ah, okay.
Come back from the place you come. After you leave inside the gates.
Aegean?
Aegean. The Scala Lounge. You have Dragon Pass.
Ah, okay.
And if you pay 35 euro.
Okay, and then Priority Pass also no. Okay, thank you so much. The fact of the matter is that Star Alliance Gold members actually should receive lounge access when flying Edelweiss at this lounge, but only if they hold Star Alliance Gold status from one of the Lufthansa Group's programs, Air Canada or United. In my case, I had Star Alliance Gold status through Turkish Airlines. So the first lounge was a definite no, but I'm gonna go give the Aegean lounge a try because they're actually a member of the Star Alliance, so there's a higher chance that it might work. Yes, according to the Star Alliance lounge access rules, I wouldn't normally have access to this lounge, but when it comes to lounges, I find that it never hurts to ask. Hello. So we both have Star Alliance Gold and we're flying on Swiss.
Swiss or Edelweiss?
Technically Edelweiss, but we have a Swiss flight number.
We don't accept Edelweiss. Sir, we have 3 flights. Now we have also one flight with 1.5 hour delay.
But while the Aegean lounge staff were definitely kind enough, they were not willing to let me in, at least today. Okay, thank you. If you were interested in seeing what an Aegean lounge is like though, don't worry. I recently visited the airline's flagship lounge in Athens, which I'm told is a lot more impressive than the one in Larnaca anyway. That video will be dropping pretty soon, so make sure you're subscribed with alerts on to be one of the first to watch it. But I will at least have lounge access at the next airport, over at Zurich Airport, but for now I do want some coffee, so I'm just gonna stop over at this Costa Coffee that they've got over here. So small size, cappuccino please.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Here, please.
Wow, that's gonna be €4.70. Definitely will reconsider flying Edelweiss next time just because it's a lounge access. But we do have to see what the onboard product is like, so let's see, maybe it's really great. Opa. This is pretty bad coffee, but it's drinkable, sort of. But anyway, even despite the lounge issues, let's call them, this airport's pretty decent. And my gate will be opening here soon. And yeah, this airport, it's only a kind of smaller, medium-sized airport, but it has all the facilities you need. It's actually pretty comfortable.
We expect the boarding to start in approximately 5 to 10 minutes, starting with our business class guests, Home Circle members, Centers, and Star Alliance Gold members only.
And I have made it over to my gate. It's over at gate 48 at the very end of their terminal hall. Although my Star Alliance Gold status didn't get me any lounge access at Larnaca Airport, I was still able to board early with the Star Alliance Gold boarding group. So as it turns out, you might get some Star Alliance Gold benefits flying on Edelweiss, but here's our plane, an A320, and this flight is just a bit over 3 hours it looks like it's going to be today, and I'm flying from Larnaca over to Zurich. So let's see what the experience is like on board. And this jet bridge is pretty long, so one more thing to say. Right before I checked in, when I checked the seating chart, the seat next to me and my wife was empty, so I've got my fingers crossed that we've got a whole row of 3 for us, but you know, you can't always get lucky and someone might have come last minute. Edelweiss.
Hello, Betty boy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we're over here in row 7, F and E. Plenty of overhead room. And I was totally pointing to row 8, but it's definitely row 7 that I'm in. Wow. My seat seems possibly a little bit broken. Let's see. I know. Someone was just lounging. But yeah. We're just a little bit delayed boarding, and well, so far this A320 seems very outdated. Some pretty old seats. The interior also feels old, but it seems functional too, so let's see how the flight is. And so far, in addition to starting boarding a little late, it looks like the boarding process is pretty slow. So I'm pretty doubtful that we'll have an on-time arrival over in Zurich, but there's still a possibility. But on the legroom front, things are looking pretty decent, and there's a little in-flight magazine, so I might take a look at that. And service aboard intra-Euro flights may not be that exciting these days, but if you want to buy something on board, you definitely can. But I'm really quite happy that I boarded earlier that they let me board despite having not the appropriate Star Alliance Gold status, because the overhead bin space on this flight seems to be very taken up, and I wouldn't want to find out what I'd have to do if there was no space for my relatively large bag that might be over their weight limit. But unfortunately, you win some and you lose some, and someone came to the aisle seat, so we don't have a row of three. But at least we're sitting together.
Dear guests, very good afternoon. It's your captain speaking. My name is Mark Ringer. Together with me in the cockpit, First Officer E41 and the whole cabin crew. Warm welcome on board on our A320 towards Zurich. We're now a couple minutes behind the schedule. The reason for that is that the loading took a bit longer than expected, and right now we have to be patient for another 5, maybe 10 minutes here at the stand. Due to so-called slot, it's a predefined departure window where we're not allowed to depart earlier than this time due to too many aircrafts in the air on the route towards Zurich. However, at the moment still calculate with on-time arrival in Zurich. My colleague will fly you. He will keep you up to date once we're airborne. In the meantime now, hope you feel comfortable. Wish you a pleasant flight.
Signore e signori, cari bambini, vi auguriamo piacevole volo con Edelweiss.
But that is impressive when they give you some announcements in 4 different languages. Only missing is Romance language. And we've just started our taxi out to the runway. And this airport's kind of cool to taxi out on because there's a huge salt lake next to it, and part of the salt lake is actually like in the airport grounds. So you don't necessarily have to go all the way to Bolivia to see a long, salty, desert-like place. It's just a kind of long taxi out to the final runway that we're going to take off from here. But they're really nice views. I mean, first it was the Salt Lake, and now it's the sea. And this Aegean flight's about to go right before us. And now that Aegean is headed over to Athens, it's time for us to head over to Zurich. And the engines are roaring up, and it's time to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please note that smoking on board, including lavatories, is forbidden. This also applies to use of electronic cigarettes as well as smoke-imitating alternative products. Ladies and gentlemen, the whole crew wish you a very pleasant flight.
And so far the ascent has been very smooth, and there's some pretty nice views of Cyprus along the way. The one cool thing on Edelweiss is that it seems like they hand out a little coloring book and some snacks to all the kids flying on board, which I think is a really nice touch for 2 reasons. I mean, it's nice to appreciate the children, but it also will probably keep them calm and quiet during a flight. And guess what? They're serving a little tiny pasta salad meal. That's not bad at all. But let's see how the food actually looks. A treat above the clouds. How nice. And they just hand you a little piece of Swiss bread and some butter. I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting all the food to be paid for on this flight. I guess I didn't do my proper research, but this is a very nice surprise. Hi, could I have a coffee, please? And the service is very nice. I feel very welcomed on board this aircraft. Sparkling water? Thanks. And this must be the cutest coffee cream container I've ever seen. The coffee is quite decent. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this food is actually quite good. It's just a simple pasta salad with some roasted onion on it. But for an intra-Euro economy flight, this is tasty. Nice little pack of butter to put on bread. And the little dessert they've got is also nice. I would say it's like cherry, chocolate, some kind of tea cake or something. With coffee, it should go well. And indeed it does.
Right now we are still in the airspace of Turkey. The further routing will lead us to Bulgaria, Serbia, then via Hungary, and then Austria, back to Zurich. The remaining flight time from now on is around 2 hours and 50 minutes, so we expect more or less on-time arrival in Zurich, and the weather looks good. Right now we have 21 degrees Celsius. I hope you will enjoy now the service on board, and I wish you a good flight. Thank you.
And we've just reached our cruising altitude, and we're cruising over Turkey at the moment. There are some really nice views. But so far this flight is actually surprisingly nice. There's only really 2 downsides, and that's that the cabin is quite old, and it's a little bit dirty. I mean, they're flying this plane around all day. I can't say exactly how many flights this plane will have today, but it's more than 2. But still, there are a few spots where it's just like really kind of looking like it needs a deep cleaning. But again, it's an old aircraft and it's flying around all the time, so I guess that's not a big surprise. And while these aircraft don't have any in-flight entertainment screen, they do have a connection with a bunch of different movies and stuff for you to watch, and it seems like they have a pretty solid selection to offer, especially for like an under 4-hour flight. But strangely, as far as I can tell, they're not even selling a Wi-Fi connection. There's no free Wi-Fi either. It's just only that in-flight entertainment that you can get on your own device. But the only real issue with that is there's no place to charge any of your devices here. So probably for a 3.5-hour flight you'd be okay, but it could happen that your device runs out of power, and then you also have your boarding pass on that device, and then you have some issues. So hopefully at some point they will decide to refit these cabins with some new USB sockets and chargers. And now we're just flying over the city of Izmir, and wow, is that a sprawling Turkish city. It's not even the largest city in Turkey at all, but it's definitely a sight to see. In fact, I guess I must have been so impressed by the overhead views that just a few months later I found myself spending a few days in Izmir. That was during my most recent round the world trip, so make sure to stay tuned for that video and about 33 others from that trip. But since it's a longer flight, I'm going to try and do a little bit of work, although the chargers don't exist, so let's see how long my computer lasts.
Have the opportunity to buy tax reliefs and tax-free products. The in-flight shopping catalog can be found in your seat pocket. We offer you a wide selection of perfume, travel accessories, as well as tobacco.
I'll skip the tax-free stuff. And we're now a little bit over 2 hours into the flight, and I mean, it's going pretty okay. I do have to say, these seats aren't like the most spacious. And we're just flying over Belgrade right now, which is kind of interesting. That's a city I haven't even been to yet, but it's definitely on my list. But even towards the front, the window seat in this smaller aircraft does start to feel a bit like you're, I guess, stuck after a few hours. The Alps. I actually need to use the restroom, so let's go check it out. And for whatever reason, the lights in this bathroom are giving me lots of flicker, so I'm sorry for all of you watching, but this bathroom is, well, it's pretty dirty. It doesn't look like it, maybe it's never been cleaned at all during the flight, I'm not sure. I mean, I just kind of came back here, it's towards the end of the flight, but yeah, I don't know. That's been the main thing about Edelweiss that's not so good, is that it's not really all that clean on board, and then the comfort's not really 100% there either, though. I mean, for a European carrier, it is pretty decent, but the soap is nicely scented. But as usual, when landing in Zurich, there should be some nice views of the Alps, so let's definitely catch those right before we land, and then we'll go check out the lounge. And I thought I'd give my wife the chance to sit in the window seat a bit, so I'm just trying out this middle seat, which is honestly much worse than the window seat. But the seatbelt sign did just pop on, and it's about 20 minutes until we're scheduled to land. And another thing that I always notice when I'm flying on these older Airbus 320s is that there can be like some serious cabin pressure when you're both on ascent and descent. But right now I'm descending and I've got my earphones in. But I do still feel the pressure on this one. And right before landing, they just handed out this tiny little snack with a nice Edelweiss logo on it. It says sustainable packaging. Pretty good. And we are just kind of flying over Lake Constance. So there's no Alps views really, actually, because the route we took was a little bit different than the one I expected. But there is some nice views of Germany's largest lake.
Large electronic devices such laptops must now be safely stowed away again. Safety on board cards to be found in your seat pocket. Please consult it once again. In the likely event of an occasion, your hand luggage must be left on the plane. Thank you.
Goodbye, thank you. So let's see what it's looking like over in Zurich airport today. Hopefully it's calm and the lounge isn't too busy. We'll see. Hi, how are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
Good.
Enjoy your stay.
Ah, cool, thank you. Okay. And this was like a little bit of a pleasant surprise because I just didn't think about it, that Cyprus is actually not in the Schengen zone. So actually right now I was able to get into this really cool senator part of the lounge, and they have more magazines than I've ever seen in any other lounge in the world. It's impressive. But they also have a whiskey bar, and it's really big, and it looks a whole lot nicer than that one that you can access when you're flying between Schengen countries. And lucky for me and my wife, this place is almost completely empty right now. It's amazing. And this place is so full of light and spacious. It's really a nice lounge. You can see there's some Qatar Airways aircraft over there, Saudia. And then, of course, most of the aircraft at this airport will be Swiss. I mean, this is actually my first time coming into this, I don't know what to call it, International Senator Lounge. And I mean, Some of the stuff is the same. They've got the Ricola like in the other Swiss lounges, but there's this relax area where you gotta be quiet and it's amazing. You could legit take a nap here. But I'm getting pretty hungry, and even more than being hungry, I need some coffee, so I'm gonna go do that. Well, the food offerings in this lounge are pretty similar to the other Schengen lounge, but everything else is just a lot nicer. There's even a terrace over there. And I mean, this lounge really has made a complete difference for my trip. They have this cool viewing platform, and on the other side you've got nice views too, and you can even use these Leica binoculars. I mean, that is really cool. And just the lounge itself, it's just a very enjoyable place to hang out for my almost 3-hour layover. So, I mean, Edelweiss flight was maybe like a 5 out of 10. Like, certainly wasn't the worst flight I've ever taken in Europe, but it definitely wasn't the best either. The aircraft was a little bit old, was a little bit dirty, but the crew was pretty nice, and I got a meal. So I'm really interested to see what the shorter flight on Helvetica over to Berlin will be like as well. Because unlike Edelweiss, Helvetica only operates Embraer airplanes. Basically, all of their airplanes have two two-seaties. So for me and my wife, that's just perfect. That's exactly what we always look for in an economy class. So that'll be a plus. But I'm wondering if the service will be as good as Edelweiss. And then in the end, what I really want to know is how different are these airlines that are basically owned by Swiss from Swiss itself. But it's looking like it's actually time to head over to my gate. And the thing is, I've got to go all the way over to that terminal, the AB terminal, I believe it's called over here. And that will take a little while because I've got to pass through some immigration checks and all that kind of stuff. So I'd better get going. And a little bus ride to the aeroplane, and luckily it's air conditioned because it is unusually hot here in Switzerland today. And that's my only complaint about Zurich airport, honestly, is that their AC is not very good, but the lounge had pretty decent AC, so oh well. And it was just a short ride, and we've made it over to our Helvetic Airways airplane. Should be interesting, first time flying it. Wow, it's almost as hot as Cyprus was here. This airline is kind of interesting because they only operate these Embraer planes, but basically it's just like you're flying Swiss. Your ticket generally just has an LX or Swiss number. You get all the same benefits if you have status with Swiss. And interestingly, I read the CEO claims this is the only real Swiss airline because actually Lufthansa Group is really operating Swiss, the other Swiss airline, so it's not really Swiss. So in that sense, I'm now going to be flying on the only Swiss airline. Just taking a little while to board here. Gonna be 11. Sorry, do you allow us to keep our bags down in the emergency here? Can you just put this up for me? Yes. Thanks. And I've just boarded, and boarding was pretty chill, to be honest. Looks like they've got 2 buses. The second bus is just arriving. So when you fly these really small body aircrafts over here, out of Zurich Airport, you usually have to take a bus, but it's not that long of a bus ride, and their buses are actually pretty decent here. But so far, nearly everything on board is completely identical to what you'd find on a Swiss airplane. So let's see what the onboard service looks like once we take off. And I'm sitting over here in 11A, which is actually the emergency exit, and I didn't choose my seat because you have to pay to choose your seat, which I think is really not cool when you have Star Alliance Gold status, but that's besides the point. But as a result, I've got really a lot of legroom. This is a pretty nice seat to have, I think. But the flight attendant did do a very, very, very short debriefing, of which I didn't understand even a word of how to sit in this emergency exit row. I mean, to be clear, the rest of the announcements were very clear in English and German. It's just that one. And honestly, having flown a lot on Swiss A320s, this is almost the exact same experience. And they're parked in the same place over at Zurich Airport. So I get the feeling that Helvetic Airways is basically just the name, and you're just getting the Swiss experience in the end. And there's the Lufthansa City line over there as well. That's also a very similar experience where you get 2-2 seating. But in all honesty, if I had to choose between Swiss and Lufthansa on shorter flights in Europe, it'd be Swiss all the way. I'm guessing that we boarded just a little bit too fast because we've been sitting here for a while. To be honest, the cabin temperature is like very, very warm. It's got to be at least like 27, 28 degrees Celsius in here. So I've turned the AC all the way up as much as I could, but it's staying hot. So hopefully once we get on the runway, we'll cool down just a little bit. And we've just pushed back, and it looks like we should be taking off now right on time, if not a little bit early. And it's now time to take off. It's really just about as clear of a day as you're ever going to get taking off at Zurich Airport. And it's really nice. There are some great views of the lake, of the city, and of the airport itself, which we're just flying over right now. But with this flight only clocking in at exactly 1 hour, let's see what this ride over to Berlin turns out to be like aboard Helvetic Airways. It looks like a 1 hour flight with Helvetic Airways gets you 1 bottle of Swiss water. And just like Swiss, everything besides like the very basic, so I guess water and maybe some chocolate, is now paid. And that's also like Lufthansa too, by the way. So actually that's a +1 for Edelweiss. And a reason I might choose them if I'm flying from an airport that doesn't have a lounge in the future, and they operate a flight from there. I mean, things like a free coffee are pretty small in the big scheme of things when it comes to booking a flight, but I really don't find it to be a great look that most of the Lufthansa group airlines have just kind of stopped basically all service on board short-haul flights in Europe now. And towards the front on this aircraft, they do have a few rows that are some version of a European premium class, but it looks like the service is pretty basic, and I haven't even looked up the fares to be honest, but every time I've ever looked up fares on a premium class within Europe, it's really not been worth it unless they're just kind of the beginning or the end to another trip to another continent, really. Plus, I'm very likely sitting in the seat on this plane with the absolute most legroom, so I don't know about that premium class on the front. I don't think their legroom is actually this extensive. But one thing that Helvetica does not seem to have at all is Wi-Fi, at least on board this aircraft. So even though most of the flights are quite short, do know if you're going on board a Helvetica flight, you're probably not going to be able to be connected until the EU changes the rules so that you can actually use your phone while in flight, which should be coming, I think, next year. But for the time being, no connection on Helvetica. And I thought I'd just go back and check out the bathroom really quick for you, and well, it looks clean enough. Not the greatest aroma, but that sometimes seems to be the case in these Embraer aircraft, to be honest. I don't know if it's something about how the sewage works. It's 99% clean, let's say. And there's really not much to observe over here in the bathroom. It's pretty much the most basic of basic economy bathrooms, but it is clean enough and it's functional, so I mean, it does the job. Let's test out the aisle seat. How would I describe this aisle seat? It's kind of similar to the window seat, but it doesn't have a window. But honestly, I usually would choose a window seat over any aisle seat. But if only this aisle seat were open and the rest were windows, I might choose this aisle seat just because the legroom is ridiculous.
Yes, you're welcome. Also from my side, a very welcome and possible on board. We already started our descent towards Zurich and expect our landing in around 30
Thank you. Just like Swiss. There's nothing quite like Swiss chocolate. And I do have to say, one other thing I like about all the different airlines that have to do with Swiss is they have a very sleek design, and it's just kind of simplistic, and well, it does feel welcoming to go on board. But that's it for this video, so if you enjoyed it, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for many more travel videos. Thank you so much, have a good night, bye.